What about the people, the Palestinians who are living in different Arab countries as refugees? What's the situation there? Because most of the statements we are getting from the crisis groups and NGOs, they're saying that not much has been done about these refugees, and they're in the worst possible situation. So, what's your observation?
I think, the Palestinians living in refugee camps or living in different parts of the world have been living the circumstances of the people in those countries they live in. And in most cases of death because of COVID-19 happened in the States. They are their citizens, American citizens, but since the pandemic has been spreading quite strongly there, and they live in areas like New York and Michigan and so on, there have been a number of cases of deaths among Palestinian communities there. So unfortunately. Also, there have been cases of Palestinian deaths in Italy and Spain, and so in these countries. In the Arab countries, I think it's just there have been minimal cases of death. But the Palestinian Authority is trying its best to work with through its embassies and consulates to reach to people and see if they can be of help in these areas. Well, I think Palestinians in these situations are, as I said before, live the same situation as people in these countries. I think those who are most affected, and we should be very worried about, are Syrian refugees nowadays, because there is no one who take care of them. And we need also to be very worried about the spread of the pandemic in Yemen, because in such a volatile conflict area, or in Libya. So in these cases where conflict has created chaos and failing states and so on, I think here comes the biggest problem for refugees, Muslims, Arabs, name it. And I think there hasn't been much in terms of recognition of the fact that while we have this crisis, there should be a ceasefire or so on in these areas in order to address the pandemic. There hasn't been a ceasefire in either in Syria, nor in Yemen, or in Libya. So how can you, on which front can you fight on?
Do you see any role of the multilateral organizations like OIC and UNHCR in this situation, keeping all the conflict zones in mind?
I think international organizations should be aware of their responsibilities in these times, and they should act responsibly to address the needs of people who are refugees, marginalized, who are poor, who cannot, or in areas where the health infrastructure is quite poor, and so on. I think it's time to do their business. In crisis, usually these organizations should work, not only in peaceful and stable times.
And keeping this in mind that there is a humanitarian crisis going on at present, I was wondering what is the situation of women in particular in these conflict zones. You're witnessing the situation in the Palestine, and then there are many other conflict zones in the Middle East. So how's the situation with the women there?
When there is in crisis areas and crisis zones, usually women bear the consequences of conflict, bear the consequences of poverty, bear the consequences of war and injuries and torture, and they sometimes become tools for torture and as part of the war between the different sides. So when it comes to today's crisis, plus that we have different in Palestine, we have the crisis of being under occupation for more than 70 years, And now we add to it other besides the political and economic, we have now the COVID-19 and its ramification. You know, when a family in a whole society is in crisis, added to it another crisis. You know, the family gets situation gets disturbed, and women at home need to be, you know, they might a husband might have lost his job, or she might have lost her job, and they need to take care of children. And you know, and women are the ones who have to be the the backbone of the family in this situation. Yeah, and you know, issues of violence against women, especially because of the lockdown, have increased. You know, women organizations speak about increase of violence inside in domestic violence against women, against children, you know, issues related to poverty and so on. So I think, you know, of course there have been bad influence of it on women, but you know, we are survivalists. You know, Palestinians are survivalists, and Palestinian women are survivalists.
I agree. Talking about the global affairs, the situation at the global level in the current pandemic situation, do you see that the liberal global, and that there is this debate going on that the liberal global order has been weakened by, or perhaps it was already weakened, and this whole episode has actually just exposed the inefficiency of that liberal order? Do you agree with this, or do you have your objection?
No, it's not about agreeing or not. It's just I'm very hesitant to say yes. You know, I'm very hesitant to say no. What I'm is, you know, liberal economy have been very strong and have prevailed for decades. However, you know, everyone speaks about the rise of China as a super economic power. Okay, we agree on that. But China is using liberal economy to enhance its economy. So it's not China is not developing an alternative economy. Her economy is embedded, is built in the liberal economy, and it is affecting the liberal economy through its tools. And the Chinese have been smart in doing this business. You know, the Americans wants to limit the rise of China's economic power, and they have been doing that before COVID-19. And Trump has been negotiating with the Chinese on economic issues before COVID-19. He wants to change the balance because he sees that the existing balance is not in his favor, and that is not in the favor of the United States. So, you know, COVID-19 showed the tragic flaws of American economy and American health infrastructure, let's say. So, but does that mean that after the crisis passes, things will continue like this? Not this, of course, not necessarily. But would the Americans be willing to give up quickly? Of course not. So there has to be, you know, a new arrangements or understandings made between the two giants. And these new understandings, I don't think you can do with Trump. So maybe if Trump is not re-elected and there will be a new administration in the US, there will be a new understandings made between China and the US. But with Trump administration, I think we might there will be some sort of confrontation, not necessarily a war, but there will be a clash in some sort or another between the two giants, because Trump is not the leader who can lead in a very strategic and in a very diplomatic way.
Agreed. So
So,
do you
and if
see the emergence of a bipolar world, even if Trump is there or not?
I don't think it will be bipolar. It will be multipolar. Eventually, we will have a multipolar system. You know, the Russians are strong. There are the Indians are getting stronger. You know, there are powers in like in other parts of and the European Union is still united. So, and it is still an influential power in the world. The BRICS group is a powerful ally. So, I don't think that we are moving towards a bipolar, but most probably in the coming decades we will have a multipolar. I think people I and people around me think about a multipolar rather than a bipolar system that will eventually rise.
So, connecting the two things together, we're seeing emergence of China as a global power, and particularly in this episode of COVID-19, we've seen Chinese authorities trying to prove their presence through the way they're responding to the crisis, the way they're providing testing kits and other resources to the rest of the world. And connecting it with the conflict zones. Do you see any positive role of China in Palestine and in other Middle Eastern conflict zones in Kashmir?
No, the Chinese do their work very quietly and very gradually. So you cannot see the effect of their work immediately or on the short term, but you might see it on the middle term or the long term. At the end of the day, I've worked on pieces of work on addressing issues of conflict resolution and so on. I believe for conflicts to be settled and to have political settlements for conflict, there has to be changes on the local, regional, and international level that allow for a settlement to be reached. So if the grounds on the local level are not ready, and if the imbalance is quite imbalanced, if the balance is totally imbalanced, there is no solution, because the powerful will say, I can take it all. If the two sides cannot reach a point where they say, no one can take it all, then there will be no opportunity for a solution. Then you need to move to the second level, the regional. Would the regional powers who have interest in such a conflict are willing to find understanding on how the conflict will be solved and protect their interest? If this level of understanding and level of maturity is there, and there will be a window will be opened for a solution. And of course, you need to address the international system. Here comes the role of the superpowers. Are they ready to find a compromise regarding that specific conflict and that specific conflict area? You know, when it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, I don't think things at the ground are ripe. I don't think they are ripe at the regional nor at the international. And this conflict, is one of the most conflict that have been different powers interfering in it. The level of interference is quite high.
Agreed.
You know, Yeah, in the case of Kashmir, there are different powers interfering, but not as much as in the Palestinian Israel. And this is and this is and this is a curse. This is a curse by itself.
I mean, seeing the situation in Kashmir, we are trying to make more powers engage in the conflict. And in case of Palestine, the situation is just the reverse. And perhaps the presence of more and more stakeholders and parties is causing the conflict.
It's making it more volatile and protracted. It's continuous.
Agreed. So, Dr. Badran, it was very nice having you here, and the whole discussion went really well. I've learned a lot about. I had so many questions about the situation in Palestine. I was so concerned, and you've enlightened us with your own observation about Palestine and about rest of the conflict zones in Middle East and in Kashmir and other areas. So thank you so much.
You are welcome. Ramadan Kareem. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Dear all, I would like to greet you all on behalf of the Eurasian Regional Center of ICYF in our webinar series called OIC Youth Connect, organized in the partnership with the National MOIC Pakistan together with the ICYF-ERC. And also I would like to express my gratitude to all organizers of this event and also our esteemed speaker, Dr. Amneh Badran. The topic of the first episode is very interesting and very crucial for our today's world. As you know, novel coronavirus COVID-19 is unprecedented in the human history, and it brought very unprecedented outcomes to the humanity in all over the world. Unfortunately, today OIC geography suffers from protracted conflict, and COVID-19 has a very special impact on this conflict. We are glad that we have completed first episode successfully, so stay tuned for the next ones. Thank you.